Yep. You got it.
Booyah.
It's insane the amount of equipment you have to have. People don't realize, dude. They don't realize.
They don't know the amount of hours I plug shit into the same port, hoping something different would happen.
It just, yeah, exactly.
I've been saying I'm going to shorten that intro music for the last 4 episodes. I got to get my shit together.
Yeah.
It's pretty long.
Yep, got to get on the editing gear.
Yeah, straight up. Man, I'm just so bad. Are you much in the video editing category?
Well, I kind of went to school a little bit for it, actually, pretty recently, and I dabble in it. It's fun to do.
Well, let me give you the formal intro really quick just to make sure I cover. Jason motherfucking Hubbard, you sweet man.
Don't put your fingers through the ceiling.
Don't tell me what to do in my parents' home, okay? We'll figure that out.
What's up, man?
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, for sure.
So where'd you go for it?
Do what?
For the school?
Oh, I went to Ohio Media, where we first met. We did that radio interview at that, basically radio school.
I'll never forget. You popped in. You said, my old lady got me munchkins. And you had this box. And I was like, this dude's nice as fuck. And we were homies from then on.
Yep.
I think that's actually how I got to know all the rest of the Funnies, was us doing that interview with Logan Radlove, I believe.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. That was super fun. So I ended up going to school there and getting a degree from there.
That's amazing. Did that experience bring you in there, or were you in there at a different point in time?
Well, that was the first time I was over there too.
Nice.
But then it just, you start finding out a lot of people, go there, and I was kind of looking for something to do. I was like, well, I need, more debt. Why not?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also something about a piece of paper that's a little bit of an enabler in this life. Like we were talking about, finances are sometimes freedom up to a point. Same thing with paper, whether that's people getting to have their citizenship or getting to have a GED or you get to have a master's or an associate's. Like those things make a very odd difference in your life. But if they don't fulfill your greater path, then there's a real question about like what that's worth to you. Like
right, exactly. And when you're somebody young, like it's maybe harder to think about that. At least it was for me. The 15-year-old me didn't think about the 35-year-old me a whole lot. But
you gave that guy space, which is an amazing thing. So, after high school, did you just proceed into a music career full-time, or what was your route like?
Well, kind of, sort of. I just kind of bounced around doing the things I wanted to do. And then I ended up having kids pretty young, so I kind of just hopped into the first profession that kind of came my way, which was basically selling furniture, working at a furniture store. And I just did that for quite a while.
That's awesome. Well, how old were you when you had your first kid?
15.
Damn, dude.
Yeah.
And do you feel like now as an adult that got to have some space from that experience, are you happy that you had them young?
Well, I don't know. I don't look at it emotionally happy or sad.
Yeah.
But there's not regret either.
Yeah.
So, so it's just, it's something that's kind of nice. Now I'm older, but I'm not old, and I have some wisdom, I feel like maybe I'm just telling myself that to kind of back me up, and then kind of be able to do the things that sometimes younger people would do, but through a scope of knowing some limits and just having a little bit of age on me.
Yeah. And also you have someone to share this life with in such a different way in your children. Like that's the biggest trip that I'm seeing right now, is someone that has no kids. But I know a lot of people that have kids, and I'm looking at my parents different because I'm seeing more of my friends with their kids.
Right.
You appreciate the things that they did for you in those points in time. Now you imagine doing it for someone else, and how that shapes you, especially at an age like 15 where you're so malleable. Like it makes you so much the person you are,
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt that I wasn't prepared for it, but go back a few 100 years and it was pretty much the norm for people to be doing stuff like that. So,
exactly.
So
it's kind of when your biological body tells you to start,
Yeah, exactry.
But you were gigging before that age, right? Like you started really young on the
I started
drums.
pretty young on the drums. I was I grew up with music my whole life, my whole family, going all the way back. mom and dad.
Yeah, dude, that picture of your mom and dad. Like,
Yeah.
I will be superimposing just some genuinely
Yeah.
amazing shit. So it's this vinyl record of your mom and dad's
right,
band.
that they cut. It's early 80s that they cut. But yeah, so my uncles, aunts, everybody played music. So I grew up with that. And yeah, it's just, when you have that happen, it was just kind of like a natural progression. It wasn't like one day I just knew how to do it. I guess I was probably 12 or 13 when I really started playing. And I went in, I was thinking about it earlier. I went in to first starting to play drums, listening to like Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, and came out listening to Nirvana and Led Zeppelin a year later.
Yeah.
Because that's about how long it took me to really sit down and work on it and feel comfortable to play.
And would you relate a lot of that transition to being particular drummers or types of music? Is that a genre change or like just an inspiration change?
Inspiration change for sure, yeah. But see, it's weird because so when my uncle, he played more like country western music, and by the time I was starting to play, my mom and dad had basically retired. They didn't really play music anymore out, but my uncle did, and my cousins did that are closer to my age, and they played more country western and things like that. So that's just kind of what I was saddled with to learn. It's now I look back on it and think, how cool it was. But back then I wanted to be, Dave Grohl.
Yeah. Well, I think restraint in your early gigs is something that good mentors provide you.
Yeah.
And there's something about the bluntness of family.
One
of my first teachers was my Uncle Greg. And my Uncle Greg never put me down. He was always super encouraging. But we'd sit there and play a 12-bar blues, just me and him in the living room at every single family party from ages 10 to 19, just so I could steal his licks and steal his licks and steal his licks. And he'll tell you if they're wrong. You know what I mean? And but you don't get to go and do everything that you've been practicing at home with that person because, no, we're back to the blues, baby. It's like there's no tapping here, There's...
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, my uncle was... he was pretty good. I mean, he would turn around and kind of give you a nasty look or yell at you. I get a little wild. Like I said, by the time I was 14, I wanted to be, Dave Grohl or John Bonham or somebody like that.
And what have your heroes?
And I'm playing, I don't know, George Jones or something.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know if it quite works.
Yeah. Have you gone back to any of those early heroes of like country western music?
Oh, no, yeah, exactly. I have. I mean, it's totally going back and understanding like, wow, those guys were grooving.
Yeah.
It's the being part of the song is ultimately what I think that taught me growing up was like, look, you're playing drums, but this guy over here is killing on the steel. If you're sitting there crashing and banging around, it ain't gonna be cool.
Yeah. Well, especially those two instruments that you're talking about. All your cymbals sit in his register. Like,
right. Yep.
I'll never forget. I went to see a band called Simo, and it's this great guitar player out in Nashville. It's just like a psychedelic rock trio. But he's like, think of the instruments as far as where they sit. It's like you go bass, kick, guitar, vocals, cymbals.
Right.
If things are working out real smooth, it's like you gotta stay the fuck out of each other's way.
Yeah.
And there's in country music when you have intense layering, like you think of like any of like Merle's records, or if you want to talk about like Waylon's like chorusy ass guitar, It's like what did you have to get rid of to put that chorusy ass guitar in there at the front like that?
Right. Yeah, and those guys back then, it was even more of a marvel because they had less technology and it was more about mic placement and getting the right feel. A lot of them are playing, no click track, all in a room together, and then maybe some overdubs if they started to do doubling and things like that.
Yeah. When we're talking about Les Paul and like what it took to be doing that, like think he and his wife are pretty much musical recluses. They put out this banging shit, but no one knows where they're recording it. And it turns out they're in the shower at their house doing all these crazy
in
overdubbing.
Hotel rooms, dude. They were traveling around in hotel rooms with the recorders, and they just take a notion and he'd set it up.
Yeah, and the brilliance of that, but also the way that enabled all of us just to like is overdubbing the end all be all. Like honestly, it doesn't seem like it. People in the room together making it happen kind of seems like the chemistry is. You're not trying to capture the elements as much as you're trying to capture the chemistry. Like, what's going to be the difference between you, me, and a computer?
Yeah,
at some
but that
point?
dubbing that had to be mind blowing. I mean, it was like Welcome to the Future back in the day. The first time you heard like, what was it? How High the Moon? I think is what it is. Is that the song? Mary Ford and Les Paul is like one of the first big hits. Yeah, and she comes in with her doubled vocals layered on top of each other. Nobody had heard nothing like that before, dude.
Dude, that's and also to be able to harmonize with your own voice is such a particular sensation. You don't think of how much that must have been a mental pop for people in their car.
When they first heard it, they had to have been blown away the first time they put that record down.
Yeah.
It was, you can definitely see why it was the most popular. And probably one of the most innovative, if still, well, I guess computers have helped a lot, but I mean, the whole idea of multi-tracking and double tracking, it came right out of there. And that was like the 40s, right?
Yeah, but if you're comparing what's the bigger leap, I don't know. Maybe Les Paul is a more significant leap than it is to go from multi-tracks on tape to multi-tracks on the computer. Like, the computer was big, but did change the music that much? I think the overdubbing probably changed the music more.
Maybe the computer changed the editing.
Yeah. What a great point, and maybe that's the downfall. That's where we let the AI in, brother.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. When I record and edit, I try to do it by hand sometimes a lot, Think about those guys in the old days that would cut the tape. I was watching Butch Vig, and he was getting interviewed by Rick Beato. Do you know who that is? So have you seen this interview?
I have not.
Butch Vig says he's so good at cutting tape, he could it's laid out, and there's 4 tracks on this piece of tape. And he says, well, I don't like the 2 top vocal tracks. They're on the top. He'd take and cut it out, just them 2 tracks, and then put a blank piece of tape back in there, and then just re-record a vocal part over that while keeping the bottom tracks, which say would be maybe a guitar or something like that.
With a fucking razor blade?
With a razor blade.
Dude, that's...
And you could never tell. I mean, that's the lost art of recording.
Well, and also when that kind of thing is seamless, like, here's one thing I was going to say that, like, there's something so different about people listening to a song for the first time in their car on the radio. So you could pull up somewhere and someone's listening to the same thing in the car next to you. It's like, literally, there's an amplitude and a resonance to that we physically react to as beings in the physical realm. It's like, if his car is bumping and my car is bumping to the same thing, and we're both being just mind blown by Mary Ford just ripping it. It's like, that's a deep experience,
Yeah. Yeah, well, you won't find that as often anymore.
Yeah, exactly. No one's ever playing the same thing.
Radio's pretty much done.
Yeah. I have an idea of, imagine going to a concert these days at Riverbend, and you take your favorite headphones and your phone, and just give me 4 mixes I can choose from. So the mains don't have to work as hard, but my direct mix is going to be cleaner.
Oh, wow.
I feel like that'd be neat. But someone else said, like, no, I want to fucking feel it. I want these speakers to shake me. It's like,
right.
What is better?
What's the loudest concert you ever been to?
Off the top of my head, I feel like Bonnaroo at some points was like the loudest thing I ever experienced. Like getting up close to like an EDM show like Odessa or something like that. But then a rock band, like, honestly, probably just like, some randos in Cleveland, just like some guys that just wanted it in a 45-person room.
Yeah, mine's definitely Foo Fighters. I saw them in Columbus, dude. My ears were ringing like crazy. So, I mean, but they got 3 just roaring guitars and huge drums.
Well, think about that monitor setup. Like, what do you do with a monitor? Do you just have one?
Just a wedge. Usually, you know how it is. You're lucky to what you got.
Sometimes I feel like we're high maintenance, but I also feel like I'm doing the right thing for the show and carrying that in-ear rack and throwing.
Oh yeah, that's super nice. I'd love to go to that. I don't mind using headphones or
next time we play together, you're welcome to use that rig because it's already sitting right there. But like, I think it's such a pain for people to set it up sometimes that like they don't want to go through that. But I also think about like how difficult is it to get Dave Grohl's wedges right when he's that loud and he has 4 monitors.
Yeah. And because he doesn't use in-ear monitors, he doesn't like him.
Exactly. He is rogue as fuck out there. Yeah. I watched Taylor Hawkins' the show for his legacy that they had. Like, that must have been one of the loudest experiences of someone's life as well.
Yeah.
You ever worry about the damage you do to your ears? You ever put earplugs in or anything?
Sometimes. The left side gets it more from playing drums because, the snare drum kind of comes in there.
Interesting.
But, I mean, I'm holding up pretty good.
Yeah.
So, I don't.
And there's no reason to, go to a place where you don't get that same experience on stage. Like, the one thing I really miss in the headphones is in between moments with the crowd. Like, I don't know what someone's going to say to me in between a song. I don't know what did they applaud? Because if I saw it, then it makes sense. If I didn't see them do it, it's like, then you don't really know. and you're just kind of entertaining yourself.
Well, I mean, technology is such a way. There's probably different things that the bigger acts do to help compensate for that, I'd say.
Totally. A couple room mics here and there.
Yeah.
But I also feel like you just need to have an engineer doing that stuff almost for you.
Yeah.
It's like as an amateur, like I do enough mixing in my life to think I can get my own mix right. No, like I need someone to help me with this because it's messy in the moment. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the same way with recording stuff and working on things with like Thomas and Jimmy.
Yeah. So in See You in the Funnies, who is the producer and the editor?
I don't know. It just depends on what. So a lot of times what we want to try to do is just work up a demo. So if Jimmy will have an idea for something, or Thomas will have an idea, and Jimmy will have maybe a little bit of a melody or something. So we'll kind of work out some pieces, and then lay it down. And either I'll be there, I won't be there, or just Thomas, whatever. And then a lot of times, what end up happening is they'll send those stems and things like that to me. At least that's how we've been working. And I kind of work on an arrangement, because see, what's a lot with Jimmy and Thomas is they have great parts, great hooks, great ideas, and you can put it all together. But sometimes it's not necessarily quite a song yet. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of times where I would come in.
Man, that's
not to say that they don't do the same thing.
Yeah.
But we've grown together in that way, and that was my part initially in the band, more so probably than playing drums, because playing drums, I just kind of got to stay out of the way. It's like we talk about with the country western stuff, you know.
Yeah, just keep the show tight and keep it rolling. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like y'all have beautiful arrangements, and it's nice to be able to know that comes from a lot of good delegating. It's like
right.
if you feel forced to call this a bridge and that a hook and this your verse, then let someone else come in and pitch you some ideas and see how that fits.
Right.
And for it to be the guy who controls the dynamics in the back, you know,
right.
for it to be the drummer, there's a very different crest to every song, you know?
Yeah. So like our last record that we put out, Soft Pack,
yeah,
a lot of that was similar to that. So it's just getting down, kind of figuring out how the songs would go. And then I went in and rehearsed with these tracks we did. A lot of them were just like acoustics, didn't have really words or anything, but they were how it was kind of going to go, structured out and all that. And then I worked out the drum parts, and then we went back in and overdubbed. So if there was something that necessarily that Thomas or Jimmy or whoever was going to play guitar or keyboard you didn't know was going to, you know, they didn't know that was necessarily going to happen on the drums, but next thing you know, what's something that they do follows right with it. So you kind of have a clairvoyance. I kind of feel like I do sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome to be able to re-deliver the experience to them. It's like, give me what you're working on, I'll give it back to you. You know, and that kind of table tennis feels good when the song hits.
And also, so if you're jamming together and things and you're just working on stuff and you kind of, you know, and you're in a loud room, it's harder to go over fine details. So it allows for somebody like Jimmy or Thomas sometimes, if you do it that way, to feel in the moment when they're there like, oh, well, I never thought about hitting a certain thing like that, but now I feel like that sounds good. Oh, it's brand new. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's not so demoed and rehearsed to death that it's a bore being in the studio and it's like, you know, you're working a factory job.
Yeah. Man, that's as someone that's more in the solo artist category, like I give all the guys in my band freedom to write their own parts. But generally, the song and the arrangement are done at that point, and you're just coming and learning kind of an idea and helping me develop. You know, maybe I'm bringing to you at 70%. I need you to help me to get to 100%. You know, but then there's something so brilliant about band chemistry that builds over how many years the Funnies gone on.
Yeah, 10 plus. Yeah,
that's outstanding, man.
I mean, Thomas and Jimmy have known each other for another 10 years. I mean, they're childhood friends,
and it shows. I mean, every time you guys play, it's. For everybody there, it's a moment in time, you know, like you all really slow shit down and make it special, brother.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I said. So it varies in ways. So sometimes it's very much the 70, 80, even 90% written when Jimmy comes to it, but sometimes it's 10%. And then next thing you know, it's 100%. So
what's your favorite arrangement of all the Funnies material that you've really done that for?
Kind of put me on a spot. Let's see. I like
no worries. Just tell
I
me
like Grave Nappers. You remember? You know that one?
I don't know Grave Nappers.
Yeah, you probably do.
Okay. What album's off of?
It's which one was that one on? Floozy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool because it starts off kind of slow and flowy with a nice little like bass solo, and then by the end it's like, you know, kicking ass, rocking.
Yeah.
style. So that's kind of a dynamic. A lot of people like that one too because of that. It starts off slow, but a lot of our songs will do that. I like Lucky. I really like that one. That was really cool. That's an instance where basically Jimmy had the idea, and he's like, "Well, I don't know what else to do with it." And I was like, "Well, you have the whole song already." And literally over the phone, we wrote that song together.
That's outrageous. And is that a late night conversation? Is that the whole day?
Yeah, it was during the day. It was probably about a 2-hour phone call. Seriously, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he had, all the ideas. So it was just a matter of figuring out how to place them and get into something. So that was really...
Yeah. When I feel like the hits of that song, and also like one thing I really love in the Funnies is the tambourine work. Like, is that stuff that you decide on, or does Josh paint that?
Josh pretty much just rolls with it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
With the tambourine. I remember when he first joined the band, we actually were recording in a place that he lived basically above, and it was more just to have him come down and be a part of the session because I mean, really, we're a collaborative bunch. So I mean, anytime you can get somebody that is good.
Yeah.
And if they're close and want to come down and participate, yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
That's beautiful, man. I feel like in the time that I've known the Funnies, like the bassist has been the most malleable role. It seems like some guys have come in.
Right.
What's that experience like as a drummer? Like, is your kinship really with Jimmy and Thomas a little bit more because of that in the songwriting? Or are you like a typical band where drum and bass is always one bit?
No. Usually, I mean, DK did the last record with us. That was probably him and then Jimmy Miller, which was our first bass player. They were probably the most into the songwriting part of it. But a lot of times, we just kind of whoever can do it. Yeah, because Jimmy's on the record playing bass on a couple songs, I think. And
that's awesome.
I can't remember which ones exactly. Maybe. I can't remember the name of it, but Thomas also is playing bass on one or two.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we just kind of fill it in. But again, I think that it's not that we don't even highlight the bass because I think we got places where the bass does really cool stuff.
There's great bass parts in those songs. Like, sincerely, the arrangements are so much fun. Like, it's especially the tambourine. It's like, to me, it's just one of those additional pops that you didn't know was there until someone really exposes it.
Right.
And your bass player can be the same way. Like, I felt like
Dude,
DK
totally. Have you ever listened to a mix without a bass, even a popular good song, and you take away the bass and it's like, whoa, hold up.
Yeah.
So you have to pay attention to it no matter who you have playing. And finding people like we've been lucky to find just solid musicians. The same with Josh coming along with him. And maybe in some way when I met Jimmy and Thomas, because I've been playing for a while, and those guys, not that they had just started, but they were just starting to kind of get out and play out. And I was one of the first, just happened to be one of the first people to see me, like, oh my goodness, I could play drums on this and make songs, because that's really what playing drums is, just the instrument I play. But what I really love to do is make songs. That's what I really love doing.
Do you have any other projects that you're doing that with right now?
No. I mean, I work with Jimmy and Thomas a lot, so we got a lot of stuff just kind of in the back that we mess around with at home studios. It's good stuff, and it could end up on something. Maybe not.
Yeah. Where does Thomas live these days?
Newport.
Gotcha. Oh, I thought he was out of town at this point.
No, actually, he just hooked it up with a pretty sweet gig in town, so he's going to be back in. And,
welcome home, brother.
Yeah, that's what I was just talking to him earlier about that. I was like, yes, we can do some stuff.
Yeah, dude. Well, that's a relief as a fan. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see more of it. So do you gig outside of the band a little bit right now, or do you kind of woodshed by yourself and enjoy your freedom as a drummer like that?
Yeah, I do that. I don't play drums a lot anymore, man. I mean, COVID's kind of messed me up. Like, you doing solo stuff, you can bring a band or play acoustic. I just play drums, so
yeah.
It's
an interesting predicament, man, and space is kind of define what you can do with that. Like, so many people in this world are living without a room that they could be loud and free in. And it's
so what I try to do is I try to compensate for that by doing the arranging, recording, just putting ideas down like that, because I mean, it works just as good for me, even if I don't have to keep up on my chops. The way I play and the things I want to do, I've just gotten to a point where it's like, I just I just want to play music if I can, but find other ways to do it.
What do your parents play?
So my dad played drums and my mom was a singer.
Nice.
Yeah, very, very, very good singer.
Did you ever dabble in being a vocalist?
No, not really.
Yeah. Did you think you have a bad voice?
Yeah, I do. Okay. I don't like it a whole bunch. I've tried to sing. I guess, I can sing good enough to get a point across if I have an idea.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's more scatting though. Skip, skip, get up, do, come on.
Dude,
you can do it.
I would love to see a solo where you just scat through the whole thing to accompany yourself. Like, that would be rad.
Yeah.
But I think the vocals are an interesting freedom for a lot of people. And to play your instrument and sing requires so much of the mind that, like, sometimes it's very freeing. Like, I can think about some dumb shit while I'm singing and playing a song. But, like, if I'm focusing on one of them the way I should at work, if I'm not, messing around and I'm really being serious about it, that all embodiment of the experience really is visceral. It's like playing a sport. It's like playing basketball. I guess drums is a little bit more visceral than either of those two. So when you sit down to play just for yourself, like, where do you start?
If I'm just sitting down to rehearse something or practice when I can these days, I just kind of just jam, free flow, and do things. If I have some kind of idea in my head, see, that's the thing for me. It's like I've never been good or even really tried to approach like a drum solo mentality. I mean, I definitely more like think about Ringo or somebody like that. Like I said, the country western. There was never room for that in my development of doing that. Even though that's kind of some things I wanted, but at the same time, I was like, you don't have to learn all that to be able to have fun and to play music. Yeah.
Well, I think there's an amazing point for all instruments in that too, where it's like you need 2 chords to get in the game on guitar.
Right.
You need up progression on bass. You can stay in C on a keyboard these days and just transpose that shit and get everywhere you need to. You can learn one key.
Yeah. But no, I've given drum lessons before, and I tell any young student, I just show them a simple beat, and I'm like, I need you to be able to play me that for like, 2 minutes, 2.5, 3 minutes. Play that straight, and then we can, just boom, pop, boom, pop, lay a groove down just like that.
Yeah.
But do it consistent, play it straight. And then you can, from that, the sky's the limit on anything you want to learn. But I mean, if you can't just get that down, you have to do that first. That's kind of just the basic thing for drums, the 1 and 3.
What do you like it with a metronome then where you're teaching that? Or do you let people be comfortable in their own groove?
Yeah, no.
Not at all?
No, you can practice metronomes at home when you come to a session.
Okay. I like jamming with the click sometimes. Like if you can be so tight to the click that you forget it's there,
right? You've
done the job. But there's so much anguish on the way through that, and there is a little bit of suffocation, a groove. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to go to I want to bury that click. I want to make sure it's not there by the time I'm doing my thing so right. But then you think about old records that do have like September. What's the tempo change on September by Earth, Wind, and Fire? Maybe 10 clicks. Mm. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
And you think about having the control to move up like that.
I was listening to Billy Joel, and there's what's the one? You May Be Right, I think is the song.
Oh,
you may be right. Yeah, so it starts off with a build. It's like dun, 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 and then it goes dun, 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 and then they just skyrocket after that build. They just boom, they come back in on that, and they're all like like you said, about 10 clicks, maybe even more quicker.
Yeah.
But there's something cool about that, in those old records that you're not ever going to get necessarily to a click track. Even though I do use a click track a lot when I play because I like being able to edit and put. Oh, I didn't like that fill. Just punch me back in right there.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be able to utilize it for the grid. The grid is what makes your...
And recording music's totally different than playing out.
Yeah.
You see a lot of old-timers, giving shit about computers and stuff. It's like, dude, you use the highest, best technology you had in a day, too.
Absolutely. Why would you not make it affordable? Because you had to pay...
And why would you say, oh, well, they're just using a computer to do that? Well, no, not really. There's artistic stuff to that and knowledge and knowing, and what beat and groove feels good and being able to do that. I mean, if those guys in the 70s were playing a lead and they screwed it up and they had to cut into it with tape, it's the same thing as using a computer.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something about like the barrier to entry for doing this shit, for making music, is way down. And where the art starts to compete with the access is your sound generic, or is your sound you? Have you found out how to be transparent with the instrument of the computer, Or does it sound like you're just taking the easiest, like Rick Beato has a great point of, if you're going to get this particular drum pack, you're going to need to tune these things, or else everyone's going to know you're using that drum pack.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yep, yeah, for sure.
Those are small...
There's a really cool guy that I've been grooving on, Dayglow. Have you heard?
No.
Dayglow. You should check him out, dude. Super, super cool. Makes pop music, makes his own music. He uses a computer for drums and all. He'll even use stock beats, but somehow he has this thing where, like you said, he's using his studio as an instrument and mixing in real things like shakers and tambourines and his voice and guitars and synths and all that.
Yeah.
Just to kind of, he's making super great music. If you like pop music, which I do, I'm a sucker for a good pop song. I can't help it.
I want an earworm. I want something that's going to really get in there. And I feel like that's the first step. If it's that catchy, that's an earworm, you got me. But then as I enjoy it, if I can digest this deeper and deeper every time I go, then you did a great job. If the art has depth.
Yep.
But it's like if it's a TikTok hook where it got in my ear, and then you fed me verses that suck. Like that's that last video that Rick put out where he's like the top 10 right now.
Yeah, I just watched that, yeah.
I haven't watched...
he said that, but then he sat there and praised probably half of them, half the songs, and said, well, these are pretty good. Well, and there was some good ones on that, I thought.
And there's some... He's going to be critical, and he's going to play the game of getting views and putting big headlines on it, but he seems like a very genuine dude. He just wants it to get better. Like... Obviously, he wouldn't put out this information for free if he didn't like seeing people succeed in the music. And right now, like I'm freaking out trying to mix my own EP right now. I'm wondering if I should just do singles or if I should just pay someone to mix it. It's like those things will drive you crazy. In your
so you're mixing yourself?
I'm trying to, but then I hear someone like him say like, "Hey,
you should probably send it off to somebody or something."
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And I think the pros should say that because they're reminding you of their worth, that whole industry.
Which is super valuable.
Yeah.
It's like you've already said it earlier. It's like a lot of times you're going to find, even like a super huge album, the Nirvana, Nevermind, when they came out with that, they recorded it and Butch Vig did a mix, but his mix isn't even the one that made the record. It was... I can't remember the guy's name, but Rick Beato talks about he's like this 80-year-old dude who's just like, that's what he does.
Yeah.
And he's just able to get you everything that you didn't even think of, things you didn't even think about getting in there. Somehow he can just do it. People got that magic touch like Michael Jordan,
Yeah. So some people have something that's truly special in that. And again, like as much as Rick is going to push for people to stay paid and see their worth, he's giving you the information to do this stuff on your own.
Right.
Everything that I've listened to on there about either miking a drum set or, trying to open up scales for your hands and things like that. It's amazing what the computer, again, lets you do. Like the education system is going to be flipped because all these resources.
Well, I mean, how do you think how do you feel honestly about, your mixing and stuff like that, your capabilities of doing that?
When I go and listen to records that I like and then I put my mixes up next to them, I'll always hear things that I don't like about my mix, but every day I feel like I'm getting a little closer, and I might still choose to pay someone to mix it even after I've done this work because I'll appreciate their touch more because I took these hours. And if I don't, next time I don't need to pay for them. Then I've made it.
Well, that's the thing. So it's like you, like we were saying, Butch Vig. He started out playing music. He just loved recording music, and he's a good musician in his own right, but where he's really got the touch is the recording, the ear, the production, that engineering part of it. That's just where he's got it at.
Yeah, I heard a thing recently where it's like you really need to hold on to your prolific quality.
Yeah,
it's like there's something great about taking things that you're not great at and getting great at them. Mm-hmm. But whatever you're best at, you should do a fuck ton of that. You should just keep
exactly.
Cause,
he loves playing drums and garbage. But come on, I mean, what
Yeah, your prolific quality is going to have more output for everybody, and I think there's something about the way that art's been starved of some of the finances is making people feel like it's not as worthwhile to do it, but it's more worthwhile than ever to share it. I mean, as much as we've sucked the money behind musical copies out of it, the access is beautiful.
Yeah.
The more people that can hear it should hear it if you love your art. And then if we can have these systems of, Spotify or your merch lines that start to make people feel compensated and worthwhile, and people own that trajectory, it's like Don't be giving it to a sleazy manager. Don't be giving it to some. Like, reward the people who made the art. Own your art. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's in a way, I guess, artists are more independent today than ever, because I mean, talking about the old guys, right? They spent $60, $70, $80, $90, $100,000 to make a record. A person like us that plays music and that is at that level, we could spend $5,000, call it, at a nice studio nowadays, because the innovation of computers and
at a higher tech studio, insurmountably higher.
So
tech.
I mean, there's a lot of things for those guys that you needed to make $20 a record back then because you were paying $80,000 to record the record. Nowadays you're not. So music's just is what it is. But there's all kinds of really good stuff out there, like Dayglow and things like that. But you just kind of got to be. Hopefully they pop up in your algorithm or somebody lets you know about them, because you probably won't find it on the radio.
For sure. Tell me about what the experience was like to take your record that you've mixed and mastered for Spotify and all that, and then go and mix and master it for the vinyl. And then why are people buying the vinyl, Right.
So the engineer and the guy who mixed it, Joe Veers, where we recorded at, he did all the mastering for both. So I'm not really sure. Again, that's like what we talk about. There's so much technical stuff in there. It's like you ship that off to somebody else.
Yeah, delegate well.
Right.
But as a listener, did you find those experiences different?
Oh, I loved it. It was awesome, man. I knew a couple people that went out and actually bought record players because that was like one of their first ones. And it's something really cool, because I'm a kid of the 80s, so I definitely remember having records and flipping through them. And that's, I think, why they're more popular now, because you can listen probably, if you arguably, a better sonic representation of your music digitally. Yeah. Or especially on CD, right? CD is probably still the best way to hear a song. But vinyl has its own sound and its own thing, hence why you got to it's a little bit at least mastering difference, right? Yeah. So the difference there is, that's what it is.
It's something that I try to focus on a lot because I want to figure out in my lifetime, how do we get back to the experience that holding music in your hand feels special?
Well, so you got a big piece with the record. It's big. It's got a big sleeve because you can hear it just as good. You're going to have it on your phone too to play in your car.
Exactly.
And things like
the
that.
Access is still there. But there's something about doing it as a pre-order too where like, okay, it's not going to be online. It's just going to be like this. That's how we're going to monetize getting these things out. Mm-hmm. But there's something literally resonant about a record and a needle drop that you don't get through your system. You get depth. You get bit depth. It can be 96K, super sexy, all this, frequencies that you don't even hear.
Which that's good for your car and if you're jamming, working out in your headphones. But if you're wanting to sit back with a beer, glass of wine or something and listen to an album, you pop that on and it is different.
Well, and there's also something to be said about so why do you consume the album over the single? I think at that point you're doubling down on this work of art that you've already said it's catchy. I like the lyrics. Now I want to hear it in its entirety, the way that the artist intended it.
Yeah, and you want to pull out the sleeve and you want to read the lyrics along with it. You want to see who made it and who produced it. That's really the only way that you're going to be able to find.
Yeah, I don't know if
stuff nowadays.
I've never read the lyrics off a record and listened to it like that. When I put on a record, it's normally because I'm down here patching cables and all that.
Oh yeah.
But it does seem like I'm just not in the demographic for that. Like even as a lyricist, I don't care that much. Like once I find out what I'm saying, I try to let myself keep saying it instead of trying to figure out what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's a little less up to me. Some things need revision. Some things are just dumb and you should fix that. But some things come out jarbled and beautiful, and I'm just going to leave those things. But when you're reading it on the back of your vinyl, as you go, there must be a real sense of completion that I know lyric junkies would adore. The people that demand that I write out my lyrics for them because they don't know what I'm saying. It's like because if you read this shit, I'm illiterate.
So you're not going to print your lyrics? I mean, if you do a record, you got to print your lyrics.
I think if I had the space on there, I would definitely do it. We just did a direct-to-vinyl session in Brooklyn, which is the closest thing we've done to any wax product. So it's a little single song, 7 inches that you order a single take of. And it's a very cool experience. It's very messy in a great way, like it's
Right.
imperfect and it's yours and no one else will ever hear that copy, so you can dedicate it to people. But I've never done a record on vinyl. I've never done a full-length record.
Right.
It's one of those things that, again, like the cost effectiveness of doing it in today's age makes me feel like, why would I put up $5,000 at once when I can go single 14 times, remaster, and kick?
Well, see, the thing is now too. I mean, technology is such a way, and your knowledge is at least in a way, I'm sure, where you could track on your own, and then if you want to send it to a different studio, somebody with more experience, somebody that you really like. I mean, you take your pick of a producer or a mixer, somebody that you like, and then you send it to them. Pay them however much, a couple grand, maybe, whatever, and then they mix. Next thing you know, it comes back sounding like, maybe that you wanted it to, and you recorded it all in your basement. Those guys do that kind of stuff all the time. I mean, you watch YouTube videos of. There was a guy that did the mixing for one of the Black Keys records, and they basically did a 2-mic setup on the drums, and he just talked about how trashy and crappy the drums were, and basically had to go in and pick out everything and do sound replacement, to spread it, to add more oomph to the snare, add more oomph to the kick. You blend it. He's blending his own drums that he's creating in with his drums to give them, to bring them up, because it's just a 2-mic setup, and that's just how he had to do it.
Yeah.
So it takes a certain type of mind and person to sit there and work and do that and know that.
Man, that's so fascinating, though, because it almost serves as like I'm just starting to learn about this for the first time, but like New York style compression, parallel compression.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, so here's your drums doing the thing, and then here's a bus of just like the trashiest, tightest version of that drum kit.
Yeah.
And it's like, so now the inverse is just send them that trashy one and tell them to figure that shit out.
Yeah.
And you get someone to paint, in the same way that
exactly.
Maybe that's something that I do feel like I'm missing in the solo artist experience that I love in a heavy-handed producer, is that someone came in and said, this is what I think made it the best. I was talking to the guy who's done my last couple of EPs, Toby, and he's just like, I try to find what's best about that song and just hold everything accountable to that one thing the whole way through.
That's smart. I actually was working on a demo that we were working on and did the same thing. Thomas sent me over a bunch of stuff, and I just kind of picked out one thing, just like what you said exactly. So yeah, that's a good way to kind of figure it out and get through what you want to get through. Yeah.
And I think as the tracker of some of this stuff, the guy who's accumulating this bag of stuff, I think all of it's important.
Exactly.
That's
so. How does that's hard sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Have you? So you've done stuff and then sent it and then come back and it's like changed a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to like try to settle in. You have to settle your own ego a lot.
Absolutely.
So,
But you kind of need that because the thing holding you back from just doing it all yourself is your ego. Like,
right.
For me, it's the self-doubt of, no, the guys I admire would tell me send this off to somebody that can make this great in a couple hours, whereas you're going to spend a lot of hours making it okay. And it's like, okay, so I'm going to do a couple of hours of hard learning, and I'm going to send it off, and I'm going to learn my lesson. I'm going to move on. I'm going to do a couple
Well, that's
hours.
and that's what, what I want to do. It's not, because I know that there's people that can do it better, but that doesn't deter me from trying to get there. I want to learn. So, I mean, that's a good attitude to have for sure.
Well, I think we're just getting in a place with everybody in the world that's like, owning your content is big. Like, as a songwriter, own your song. But bands have a harder time. Like, you have to split up who owns aspects of this thing,
right,
and how it gets monetized moving forward. But transparency in those transactions is everything. Like,
it's very difficult. Music.
I cannot imagine the band thing, and that's why I've skewed away from it, because I pay guys hourly,
right? And
then what's done is done. It's like, then it's in this bag of stuff that I'm moving forward, and I'm taking 100%, because there's a couple of my songs that aren't in that category, and sending that check every year is kind of like what the hell are we doing with this?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess it all depends. I mean, lots of people would do that different ways too. It's just the levels of it, and when do you really feel like you're at that level? Because it's like, okay, yeah, you were in the room, or
or you contributed.
You contributed. So what are you going to get? A check for $1 every 5 years or something? Is that what you mean? Like, what are we really doing here with where we're
with
at?
dividing this sum?
Yeah.
It's like someone should be accountable for that number not being $15 amongst 5 guys. It's their $75, and I think when you have 100% confidence that this is your asset to make something of, that person's more motivated.
Well, you've heard like in Nashville and stuff, places like that, there's like, well, I guess in even pop music, like 15 credits on songs nowadays. But of course, those, the context, those are getting hundreds of millions of views.
Yeah. Well, and they have a system that can apply hundreds of millions of views to songs that maybe aren't the caliber to earn that on their own.
Right.
And then the opposite, songs that earn them credit to put towards those songs. So it's like the industry is clearly more developed in Nashville, and they have songwriters unions, and there's weird social ethics, and there's a lot of things going on there. So I think as the internet and as the pandemic has kind of opened us up to say, like, no, you should consume local, stay local, because we need to be more spread out in this world of people taking part in their communities and having space to do so. And NYC isn't going to work as well. We can't live on top of each other like that.
Right.
But there's something in the arts there that, if you're in the room at a co-write in Nashville, you're getting your cut, even if you didn't say anything about the song. You were in the room. It's like that's a social ethic
and that's been that way for a long time. I mean, that's how like people like Garth Brooks came to be. In those things, and other people like, oh, write a song and then he sings it and things like that. And that's that's a cool way to be. But I mean, technology helps with bands and splitting things up too nowadays.
Yeah, and sending that out and dispersing it. But then also that middleman is such an interesting role. It's like we're trusting companies like TuneCore and CD Baby and Spotify and all these funnels of how the money goes from artist to consumer, from music going from artist to consumer.
Yeah.
And there's something interesting where you say we monetize on the table. We have things that people know make us money, whether it's the vinyl at a little bit of an upcharge so that you can make some cash, whatever you got to do. But when you look at splitting up that little bit of money for your songwriting credits, like I have a hard time with the inequity of going into a songwrite. And I guess for people that are selling tunes, it's different. But I want to walk into a room and say, like, I'm writing a song for me today. I need this. Like, I need to get this thing into song form, whatever I'm feeling.
Right, yeah.
And then pay people adequately for being there and helping me with that thing. But then knowing, like, okay, now I have this thing that I can move forward with. Like,
right.
Find out what's the fair hourly for someone. Pay them up front so they don't need to spend their life wondering if their time with you was worth it. No, it was worth it because we put a number on it, and you get to walk away, and at that experience, now I have the access to move forward with this stuff.
Well, what's cool too, right, is that it's so many different ways you can do that. So you can do it that way.
Yeah.
More like the way that we do it is kind of the three of us work it out, and we don't really worry about things like that. It's just when we do see in the Funnies, it just is what it is. But yeah, so when you're talking about things like mixing it up and doing, dispersing it out, it can be tough for sure.
But I've always heard like bands are a hard relationship, but they're a special relationship.
Right. That surprises me that we've been a band for as long as we have,
dude.
And still feel like we're going pretty strong. I mean, like I said, the
Thomas coming back is huge, bro. That is huge.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the universe calling you back.
Yep.
There's something about in life where you got to let go of trying to control things that are outside of your control. Everything's always in a flux of change, and you're just in that change. So focusing on taking care of you, taking care of what you need to in the meantime, things will always align. That if you've been doing your shit, if you're at 100%, when the right thing comes, you can burn that whole tank on getting it done. You can go full throttle. And bands as 5 or 6 or 7 people can move forward when things are right if everyone's able to take care of each other in the right way, which is a hard thing, but it's special when it happens.
So have you you always just wanted to do your own music, or did you start off doing covers? And
I still do a lot of covers, honestly. Like, and that's now an ethical issue in my life, because I'm like, how can I play the hits and make $1 bill when I'm over here trying to write the hits? It's like, those people should be paid for me playing their songs in a bar. And the way that happens by bars being gouged is a very interesting thing.
Right.
And like, I don't know. It's very confusing to me. So I've been trying to do my 4-hour shows just all original and just eating it. But, that's a great experience to learn.
So, yeah, I grew up, like I said, playing classics, country western, classic rock, things like that. And then the first original band I ever got into was like a punk band. And I was probably about 24.
Nice.
And ever since then, I was just like, that's all I really want to do. Now, I could cover in a band, but I couldn't, like, say if somebody was in like a top 40 cover band, I couldn't do it. Or a country, a new country cover band, things like that, which there's plenty out there. I really couldn't do it. I'm seeing myself as only, I could play some, if I was going to do something, play like in a classic rock band, fill in or whatever, or maybe like, Billy Joel tribute or something.
That'd be fucking rad. Well, like we were talking about before, there's something about choosing in this life to do what you want with this life, because you're not going to get another one.
Right.
That's just a cold hard fact. This assembly of the matter that is you.
That one's not going to exist no more.
Exactly.
It'll be something else.
Yes. And
and that something else might not be able to play music or even want to.
Dude, I really hope I don't come back as a tree and just have to watch everyone do cool shit. You know what I
Well,
mean?
if you come back as a tree, maybe they'll cut you down and make a guitar out of you.
Dude, I would love that. This is
like The Natural. You ever seen that baseball movie where he carves the bat out of a tree?
No.
It's like got magical powers because it was the tree was hit by lightning or something, and yeah,
it was actually
Redford.
one of his ancestors just coming into that tree.
Yeah,
dude, this is gross. But I've told my fiance for a while, like, when I die, take the biggest bone I got, my femur, whatever, and put bone nuts on all my favorite guitars.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Hook them up with a little bit of me. And if
I thought you were going to say just like strap a string to it and play it.
Immediately they do dueling banjos. It's like, God damn it. Or someone frees my bird.
Dueling femurs.
But yeah, hook it up with the bone nut. And then, like, if people would be grossed out by that, don't tell them. But, like, give them to people I love. And someone's going to be like, dude, that's... Or if I get a hip replaced and I'm still alive, I'm going to do it myself.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, because she kept saying no. And I told my buddy Nick, I was like, you got to hold my spouse accountable if I go quick. You know what I mean? Like, I need that femur out. You got to move quick with those things, bro. You an organ donor? That's my favorite question to hear people ask at the BMV, and I'm trying to pretend like I haven't been eavesdropping the whole time, but at that point I'm really trying not to eavesdrop. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to know what you think of the app. I don't need to know.
Are you an organ donor? I think I am, or I'm not. Sometimes I have thought about, like, well, if it says that on your card and they're scraping you off the highway, but you could live, are they less likely to help you out if they think you got a good heart? And somebody
I don't think that's ever the case. The only time they can really take organs is if you've gone brain dead, I believe. And it has to be like a very particular setting where they can keep the operation still somewhat going on so they can harvest the organ at, its best state. It's not like they're on the side of the highway. It's like, how long has he been gone? 4 hours. All right. Well, let's check it out. Let's see. Yeah. Any rodents around,
Yeah, exactly.
But I think I'm definitely listed as one. It's such an odd thing to think that there's just this line of people that need organs right now. It's like technology will probably be able to help us out with that situation, but it's really weird that we're also growing like pig.
Oh man,
pig valves.
They
and
were like 3D printing meat. Have you seen that?
That seems like a worse call than putting it into our system, which seems dramatic. Yeah. Like, I'd rather not eat that,
Yeah. You don't eat regular meat?
No, I eat regular meat.
Yeah.
I'm saying I don't want to eat the 3D printed meat.
No, I don't think so either. I don't know if it's there yet, but I mean, nice try, I guess.
You got to be quicker than that. Dude, what if we all think the AI is just going to take over really quick? What if for like 3 decades, it just makes like silly attempts to try to fool you? You have like a robot made who's like, all right, why don't you just go outside the front door and I'll lock it? And it's like, not getting me this time. No, I'm unplugging you. This isn't your house yet, stupid.
Yeah, that AI stuff's pretty weird. Was it
ChatGPT?
Yeah, I watched that South Park. It was funny.
Dude, I have not watched that South Park. That sounds like what I need right now to understand it, but also feel okay with it.
Yeah, at the end of it, basically, they let the chatbot write the ending of the episode, and then they just do the dialogue. It's funny. You can watch it.
That sounds rad and terrifying. Any good?
Yeah, it's funny. At the end, it says written by what's his name, Trey Parker, and in Chat GPT.
Dude,
I give it credit for writing it.
I can't
on the episode.
imagine that they are the first to give it credit, but like what a beautiful like expose.
Well,
like, it is a rap.
I think that's the new thing in music, and I've gotten pushback talking to people. It's like, oh, well, now you can just write me an alternative song that sounds like Nirvana, and then it'll write a song. Well, to me, that's like, it can be overused, but it's also another tool. So if you're a writer, it's a so it's like a co-writer or somebody that is with you. I can't think of the word.
Yeah. No idea. I won't be able to grab that.
A co-writer.
Okay.
It'd be like a collaborator.
Okay.
It's it becomes a collaborator. So you type, it's like, man, I'm stuck on this. Some ideas might be cool, and you tell the chatbot what you're kind of looking for, and then it just gives you ideas.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it helps collaborate and create new and interesting music. A machine's probably not going to be able to make real human music ever, but why not use it as a tool to help collaborate if you're in a sticky spot, or if you're looking for like, oh man, what other chord could I do with this? And you play the song for your phone, and your phone says, oh, well, you could go to this chord, that chord, this chord, and you try a few of them. Oh, thank you, AI.
Yeah. Or you're stuck on a verse and you just have it replicate your first verse and put it in the second. It's like, if you can maintain your independence alongside these machines,
right,
then we've done the right thing. But I think as we found out with our phone, like, our dependence is an issue.
Oh, yeah.
And we need to celebrate the times that we can step away from these things. And I certainly don't enough in my own life. Like, I can't remember the last day I left the house without my phone and just said, like, fine, whatever. I don't know if that's been the last decade of my life, which is disturbing to think about.
I walked my dog without my phone the other day, and it felt weird. And I was only gone for like 20 minutes.
And I think you find things in the mind that we all ignore when you're really that far away from it. It's like
right,
you can't imime the stream of shit that your brain is trying to process that you keep looking at. But on Facebook.
I'm talking about really like the technology for music, though. I see that as AI is bringing on. It's another blessing to help people create and things like that. If you use it to make an entire song, you're more than likely going to be able to know that you did, and it's not necessarily going to be super great. But I mean, it's like you're talking about that Rick Beato thing. 5 of those songs, the top 10 were okay, but the other ones were one note, just dissonance with, rapping on them, which if that's what people love, great, cool, it's awesome, not necessarily for me.
Yeah, I can't tell you that because I'm not the audience, that's not worth anything. Like, clearly it's worth something if you love it.
Right.
But that's such an odd question of it all, man. And I think people who continue to make art passionately are going to be what survives this technological curve. People that give up on their own creative and take the tools and just smear them,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't think for a creative person that something like AI is only going to benefit, only going to be a tool to help. It's like it'd be almost like having a Rick Beato in your pocket, because if he's sitting there and he's listening to a session and you are booked with him and he comes to rehearsal or you're at the session and he's like, oh, that sounds really good, but you guys should change to this E minor 7 diminished chord when you do that. You know what I'm saying? And then you do it and you're like, oh man, there's a hook in the whole song. We didn't hear it. It's just kind of sang over it, playing whatever, but he heard it. Now you could have something like that in your pocket, maybe. Like the AI would be like, oh, well, here's how you could try to change that a little bit.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, sweet.
It's a good attitude to have about it, brother. It's scary for all of us to think that we're replaceable, but it's like, oh, you definitely are, every single one of us.
Well, no, you're not replaceable. You are you using a computer program or something to help inspire you to be even better. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's what humans are built for. That's what we're coming right into. I mean, there would be days in the future where, the shit's implanted into us, and it's not even at the extension of our hand in a phone.
Yeah, I think I meant that in a less self-deprecating way, more just like, there's going to be more people in mankind that would have the ideas that you would have, and it's like that, would live life the way that you were living life, and these things are just, again, happening. It's like, let go of the uncontrollables. Like, has it arrived? Oh yeah, it's arrived. If you can use it, go ahead. If you don't need it, hallelujah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, not to be like too political. I guess it's similar though to like guns and things like that. It's like, well, they're already here.
Yeah.
So what do the technology's already here. So what are we going to try to do? We're going to try to do our best to bend towards the good nature of it.
Yeah. And then within that, it's just like, we're free to do so. The coolest thing about living today is that you can say, I don't need to work more this week. I have enough.
Right.
I don't need to hang out with those people anymore. I've had enough. I can move. I can get a different job. Like,
yep.
So many of us feel bound to the life we're living if we don't like things. It's like, you can work every day to change little things around you and cut yourself loose and get some freedom in that, including going bankrupt. Yeah. And that's why I'm on Shark Tank today, guys. Shit went south real quick, okay? And I am not 3D printing enough items for my Etsy to really be blowing up. Exactly. So
I got a new thing, 3D printing meat.
Okay, no. Patent approved, stomach not so much. Dude, that shit would clog me up real quick. I'd rather eat Play-Doh first. But saying that, Play-Doh's delicious.
It's always smelt good. I don't know if I ever tried it. I was more of a crown eater, I guess, in my toddler years.
It's actually what they make the 3D meat out of. It's almost strictly Play-Doh. The good components, brother. Is there anything that you'd like to promote on the way out of this, player?
Well, we did just pick up a local gig here in Cincinnati, the Madison Live, July 15th this summer. So it's going to be a big thing. They're going to be putting things out for that. It's one of our friends that we met a long time ago. His name's Grant, and we call him Your Wishes, like Your Wishes S. Grant.
Yeah.
So there's a whole story behind that.
That's complicated. I love it. I love it.
Well, Ulysses S. Grant was born in Ohio, right down on the river, just out east on
like
52.
Moses, they put him in a basket and
we
let
were.
him loose.
Yeah, that he
picked up by the Pharaoh.
Yeah, exactly. And then he became a pretty good president. Pretty good general. He kind of kicked ass, took names. If you like your Civil War history like I do, I could get on that.
Dude, I would love to hear you go down that rabbit hole for a second. Are you really a history buff? Do you love warfare?
I love I watched the Ed Burns documentary on the Civil War, and just something about that. And when I was a kid, my grandma would take us on vacations, and this is when I was very little. And when you're very little, you want to do like the carnivals and fun rides, but she wasn't about it. She was taking us to like history museums, Civil War reenactments, Old West style, like mock hangings, this stuff you learn things like that from. And at the
mock hangings.
Well, have you ever seen one like like an Old West town? It's set up and.
Dude, that's a spectacular band name. Dude, I have never seen one of those. I'm so shocked you said it so casually. That's so funny.
Oh, well, yeah, it's a performance piece. It's Tecumseh. Learn about like Tecumseh. You know who that was? He's like the Indian that worked with basically the white people, and it's kind of like there's a whole history thing behind that. But no, like Civil War stuff is really interesting time for American history, and where we all kind of like sprout from. You can say that it was like the 1776, but really it was kind of a hard reset in 1865
dude,
for America.
What a nice way to put it. And also, like, people act like our country is so divided. It's like, look at that. That's actually what that looks like. Like, let's not head there. Let's know better.
That's divided.
Yeah, exactly. So. And so let's not exaggerate too much when we're looking at a glaring example of what we might be too close to. So reel the fuck back in. Everyone's allowed to be different, baby.
One of my favorite things about it, and Americans I think get mocked for it, is I guess what you'd call the rugged individualism. Now, I'm not necessarily rugged, but the individual part, I mean, that's just kind of ingrained to me, and it seems like the most, I'm me, you're you. Yeah. You're you, you're you. You don't impress or impart on anyone, and if you want to help people or you want people in your circle, it's for you to be inclusive.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. Would you mind wrapping this up with a drum solo because we got it running?
I just said I don't do drum solos. I'll do something.
I have a hard time calling it. Give us some musical orchestra of full-on bodily emphasis.
I can do that.
Okay.
All right. You want it now?
Jason Hubbard, everybody. Okay. Yeah, let it rip, baby. I just said I don't do drum solos. Until now, brother.
Until right now. Let me get these freaking Crocs off.
I've
Crocs are comfy, man.
heard great things about Crocs, but now I'm wondering why you don't got a hard Jibble game. Holy shit, that's the Weekly Wave, everybody. Jason Hubbard, I love you, brother. See you in the Funnies playing Cincinnati coming up soon, y'all. Take care, players. Fuck yeah, brother. Thanks for making an exception. That was beautiful.
Oh, I was just teasing you.
Oh,
I thought it was
I'm joking. Dude, have you watched I Think You Should Leave? Have you watched that show? Dude, you would fucking love it.
What is it?
I think you should
It's
leave.
on Netflix. It's called literally I Think You Should Leave. They showed it to me on a tour trip, but
It's Tim Robinson. He used to write for SNL.
Yeah.
He's just too raw, man.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'm always looking for something new to watch.
it's fucking hilarious. There's another new one I want to watch, Matt.